morning or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you are, and welcome to the March edition of Space for Change, where we create some space to talk about all things change, project management, human leadership, and really take the time to connect. So welcome, and thank you for joining us. So just by way of introduction, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Andrew, and I've dedicated my career to help empower leaders, teams, companies into the future of work, which brings about a huge amount of change. My change soulmate, Christina Herrera, is here as well from Christina Herrera Consulting. She's definitely my co-pilot and my co-lead when it comes to all things space for change. And she's coming in from New York. And today's a very special one because we have two exceptional change-nauts who have joined some of our cohorts over the last few years. We've got Sandra Yencho, Director of Pacific Program Management. Sandra joined our US cohort program last year and is going to be sharing a lot about actually applying human-centric approaches and co-creation mindsets to change and strategy development. And we've also got one of my favorite South African sisters, Marianne Mills, who is dialing in from Australia. Marianne was actually one of our first virtual reality participants for one of our foundation programs last year. And she's been applying a lot of design thinking even before then. So she's going to share her story of how she got into the co-creation space and what it's meant for her in her career. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to the amazing Christina to start it with you.
Hi everyone. So again, thanks for being here. What we'd like to do in the spirit of co-creation is ask you all to jump in and participate with us. So if you could grab your phone and either open your camera app and hover over the QR code, or you could jump to a web browser, www.ahaslides.com/space 2021. And just give me a bit of a thumbs up if you've got that. If you're struggling with that, put something in the chat as well. We've got Hugo who can help you with that. Yep, so I see some thumbs up. Fantastic. Here's the QR code as well. Lovely. So let's get straight into that. So what we'd like to ask you first is, what the heck do we mean by co-creating change anyway? And I really love your insights. So just put a couple of thoughts. You could write as many as you like, but one thought per submission. What do you think we mean by co-creating change? Pop it in, hit submit. The new idea comes up, pop that into, hit submit. Engaging with humans to create change collectively. Nice. Working with those involved in the change to create the future together. Love that. Inclusionary vision and process. I love that word, inclusionary. It's got action behind that, right? Collaboration is key for success. Doing it together, coming up with ideas together. I'm seeing the word together a lot, which is great. Engage with the customer. That's right. How do you engage? Uniting in the change. I'm loving it. Yes, yes. I see some in the chat as well, working with people, empowering them. Yes, including end-to-end stakeholders, users in the process of bringing change. Yes, I love it. Yes, helping people express their opinion of what they expect, what they fear, what they want, what they hope for. That one's pretty deep. I love that one. Absolutely. So keep them going. We've got some more questions. So what I'd like to share with you is what we mean by co-creating change is really not, it's not about applying the change to people or giving you the change or, giving you the change strategy. It really is about this inclusiveness, this togetherness. It's a smart and meaningful way of creating a strategy around change, whether that's business change, tech change, finance change, HR change, no matter what it is, there's something really powerful and meaningful around co-creating and coming together for that. Nice work, guys. Let's jump to the next one. So you might see on your app, you need to select next slide. So just if you don't see that, just click on next slide. Here's the next one. What are some challenges when co-creating change? And I know you've all experienced this before. So what are some of those challenges? Remember, this is confidential. You can put anything you like up on there. But one thought, one post, pop some challenges in there. Let's see what we've got. Yep, we might need to refresh. I can see 14. Here we are. Lack of engagement. Yep. People not buying in. Trust. Yes. Communication, moving forward. Moving forward is tough. When things are moving too slow as well, uncertainty. When things are moving too quick. Yes, we've got both extremes here. Convincing people to come on board with co-creating. Yes, it's that buy-in, right? That ownership that is also very, very difficult. Sarcasm, lack of trust. Yes, and ultimately that is a defense mechanism, right? It's a way that we protect ourselves. So these challenges are real. They are human challenges that we are experiencing in the business world when we're developing these strategies. Nice work, guys. And let's look at the last one. What are the opportunities or benefits for organizations that adopt a co-creation mindset? So what do you think those opportunities or benefits are? Buy-in. Bam. Yes. I feel like that was like a mic drop. Buy-in. Yes. Okay, what else? What are some other opportunities or benefits? Increased engagement. Time saver. Yes, time saver is so important, especially these days with so much uncertainty. Businesses need to have assurance that they can trust you and help drive that process to save time as well. Velocity, sustainability, meaningful change. Yes. The stated change for doing X will actually be realized. I love that. Yes. Unity is a huge benefit of co-creation and a co-creation mindset. Nice work, guys. There's so much coming in here. Meaningful change, acceptance, more value. Yes. Nice work. Fantastic. So the benefits and the opportunities of a co-creation mindset are really endless. And there is so much value for, the business that you're in or the clients that you're serving to coach them to create and adopt this co-creation mindset in strategy development. And as I said as well on some of my posts on LinkedIn in the lead up to this, whether you're a change management professional, an HR professional, a project manager, someone in legal and finance, no matter what area of business that you're in, a co-creation mindset can really help to drive all of these values that you saw on the page into the business and back to your client. Andrew, what are your 2 cents?
Well, my 2 cents is, I had a pre-pandemic sense and now I have a post-pandemic sense. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I work in co-creating projects or if I'm working on change projects, it really feels like we're building planes in the air. It's almost like we have to keep the business going, keep all our stakeholders engaged, but at the same time, roll out the change, train people up, communicate. And it really does feel like building planes in the air. Who feels like that? There we go. So I've got a little video. Tell me if you relate to this, because this is what it feels like when I co-create change.
Some people like to climb mountains. I like to build planes in the air.
I grew up wanting to be on a wing, wanting to be up this high.
Sometimes the temperature up at altitude will reach 60 below. It's brisk, it's refreshing.
You never know what you're going to come across up here. Canadian geese, mallards,
owls. These people back here, that's why I come to work. That's why I build airplanes in the sky.
We're not just building a plane here. We're building a dream.
I love this job.
I do a lot of things up here. When I look over there and I see that little kid, the look in his eyes, that's all the things I need.
Woo!
All right, so we're not here promoting EDS, but I think it's a great video because on the one side, it's a lot of work, a lot of collaboration, and we're living in an age now that is hyper connected. So we have a huge opportunity. We have the technology, we have the skills, and particularly in the change management space, we are the people. And as leaders, as project managers, we have a huge role in herding the cats, if you would say. But when we collaborate, look at the amazing things we can achieve. We can literally send rovers up to Mars. We can handle pandemics globally. We can do incredible things when we co-create. Because in the end of the day, it's really about the joy at the end. It's about why we get into business in the first place, but also it's about helping people and our customers and our clients. And that's what I love about the video. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of excitement. It's a lot of adrenaline. I love that guy's face when he's like, I love my job. But the end result of what we do in the project space, BA space, change space, it's why we keep showing up, isn't it? Awesome. So I'm going to hand over to Marianne. She can introduce herself, and she's one of our first changenauts who's going to share some of her experience in co-creating change in the project and change world. Marianne, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. So many faces. I'm glad to see some familiar faces as well. Big shout out. There's a little blurb about me. I'm a meddler and I'm a procrastinator as well, but I'm a meddler in other people's business. So I tend to bring all different perspectives and opinions together, and then I try to help make meaning so that change can really start getting a grip on itself, so it can start rolling out the door. And I want to tell you a story today of how I got where I am and why I'm such a meddler. So I'm just put a box there for me because I'm currently going through a journey where I have to unbox myself. Way back when I was a little bitty, almost adult, I started a career in language, and specifically as a translator. So in those days, those photographs are a bit older than me. Full disclosure, I stole them off the internet because I don't have photographs of me as a student. We did a thing that they called language lab learning. And we sat in these little boxes and we were supposed to learn French or learn Zulu or learn German or whatever you picked. And it was such an isolatory single endeavor. There was no co-creation. There was no chance of speaking to the person next to you or asking them, how would you say this word? Or there was no double check. And that frustrated me a little bit, but I was working with it, still the box, still in the box, still thinking I should be in the box. And then, so those top photographs are the language labs. And I think that first frustration about there being no creativity, no co-creation, that is a theme that's run with me my whole life. And then I became an interpreter, which is even worse because you sit in a box and you speak and there's people in a room and you can't see them and you can hear them, and all that you need to do is you need to churn out what they say in a different language. But again, no co-creation because there's no communication flow. So my career took a turn and I became involved in research, and I did all kinds of things. So on there, you can see on that slide, that's a slide that shows you where research methodologies sit, especially qualitative and linguistic things. And it was better because I could speak to people and I could hear their opinions. But again, it all went onto a page and it all went into a report. And those who contributed to that insight never heard where it went. They were never informed of what they contributed to, which again, stuck a bit wrongly with me. But still in the box, right? Still in the box. And so my big problem with that was that the business processes during that research, the process didn't allow for it to really being human-centered. And so my little wagon went through life, and I finally arrived at station Earth to Mars. And I did a course with Andrew and his team, and it was amazing, right? Advanced diagnostics, you know the spiel, some of you have attended it, and we explored different tools to deliver different change diagnostic sessions. And Miro board came into my life, and I took to it like a duck to water, because this is one canvas where we could put things together, co-create, be creative, bring the human side, bring empathy into the room. And it also translated well into business processes, because suddenly you had something visual that you can give back to people, say, look, this is what you contributed to. So in a sense, this whole COVID world has given us a huge gift, because it's moved us from the whiteboard, and there's nothing wrong with whiteboards. You'll see I've got a huge one behind me. I love my whiteboard, but that's ephemeral. Once it's wiped out, there's nothing except if you took a photograph with your iPhone. So yeah, so the Miro board. And when Andrew asked me to talk to you today, I realized I need to tell you about this journey. So I took my dissatisfaction with not being able to co-create or being creative in change, not being able to have a visible input and output into the business processes, and the empathy, the lack of empathy. And I looked at them, and Andrew, you can go to the next slide, and I put them together. And I think when we then use human intervention methods on top of that, so we have all of these different tools, we have Miro, we have Mural, all these things, and then we use a thing called liberating structures on top of that. So liberating structures is a way of facilitating conversation, so that the conversations yield the co-creation elements that we need. You know, we can chase people into a room for an hour, but if we don't facilitate that conversation in a very specific way, we are not going to get the information out of them that we need to continue to take the next step. So I urge you to go and just Google liberating structures. I think perhaps Andrew and I should talk a bit and bring some of that in. But yeah, so so all of that in combination, just my last little nugget of truth I want to leave with you is that when we have human-centered design and it's built on creativity, empathy and facilitation and business needs, and they all come together in the middle, voila, we have something that brings the humans to the table, keep them at the table, get the change happening. And I just want to leave you with this. Although I'm a big Miro fan, it's not about the canvas. It's about enabling that conversation. And yeah, spaces of truth and psychological safety. Thank you very much. I would take questions if anyone has a specific question. I think there's a little bit of time, Andrew.
Any questions, guys? We've got a lot of comments saying, oh my God, I love this, Marianne. I love this, Marianne. A big one was the empathy. But hey, put your questions in the chat, guys, and we'll either get to it here. But Lachlan's asking, what is your top tip for liberating structures?
So liberating structures are, they're uber super meddling structures. So you have to make out with yourself that I'm willing to be this meddler. I'm willing to be this catalyst. And then learn the liberating structure method. There's very specific cadence to it. It's almost like you're a bit of a group psychologist. Practice it on your friends and be very well prepared for stuff to not go the way you've planned it. So you have to be, you can't do it on a day or in a moment where you feel switched off. You have to be absolutely switched on, absolutely there, because you bring something to the room that nobody has experienced before. Oh, and that brings me to another point. Slowly teach people how it works. Keep on doing it.
Yes.
Push against it. Keep on doing it.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like the frog in the water. You have to make it hotter
Yeah.
and hotter and hotter over a long time, and then they won't jump out. They'll work with you.
Very good points. And I get that a lot, those questions around that. From my end, some tips as well. I started using human-centered design specific in change about 7 years ago. And the biggest challenge and tip first is your own mindset. I was so used to holding on to a methodology or this need to have the answer myself before allowing other people to create it. So once I let that go, really magic started happening, and I learned to trust the process of creation. And that took me time. And once I was comfortable with that, people around me started feeling comfortable with it as well. And I got better and better and better. And the slowly teaching people really benefit. I don't even call it liberating structures. I don't even call it human-centered design. I just say we're going to do a workshop. We're going to do a brainstorm. And then in the workshop, you build that rapport, you get people feeling safe and comfortable, you introduce everyone, and then just roll it out like a workshop and just follow a different approach. And that teaches the proverbial frog, as Marianne would say, to get comfortable with it. Awesome. Marianne, round of applause for Marianne. Hey, big thumbs up. Thank you so much for your share. So powerful. We're now going to move on to the amazing Sandra Yencho. So Sandra, over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Hello and welcome to this great webinar. I am happy to join you from Rockefeller Center in New York City. So for all the US folks that are having a late afternoon with us, thank you. And for everybody in the morning, good morning to you, Wednesday morning. So a lot of people ask what I do, and for a very long time, I have worked in the space of commercial real estate. I first worked in designing workplaces and educational facilities for some of the top institutes around the US and Canada. And since then, it's kind of gravitated into this owner's rep project management, where owners hire us to really facilitate large scale projects, complex programs, and work with them to transform workspace. So what I say is I reimagine workspace to achieve business objectives and to unleash the power of people. I wrote my thesis about this back in university, and I feel like it's very powerful that how people interact in space allows them to live, work, and play to the best of their ability. So I'm happy to share my journey with you, which has so many intersections with what Marianne shared with you in her journey as well. So a good story always starts with a problem. And I was very used to working with large technology companies, innovation companies, companies in finance and media. And so one team that I work with is responsible for transformation projects for a global online retailer. And when we face any kind of crises, it affects our programs that we perform for them and the projects that we're transforming their workplace on. We always get together, right? And we'll get in a room, in a war room for a couple of days. We'll fly in from around the country. But last year, about this time, we had a major disruption. A global pandemic hit us, and everything ground to a halt. All of the planes came out of the skies, all of the trains stopped. And we were like, oh my gosh, how do we deal with keeping these offices open for this essential business that was providing services around the world during this global pandemic? How do we keep them open and keep their employees engaged? How do we keep their projects moving? And it was a huge disruption. And so in 2021, as we're seeing more people come back to the office across US and Canada, how are we going to transform their space and run our programs effectively? And what it boils down to is this word kept popping up, change management. But really what I'm focused on and what our team is focused on is this human-centered change. So I want to take you through now just a few things. So we were humming along, we were really trying to grind it out and figure out how to co-develop change with tools and processes. And last summer, I was fortunate to join Christina and Andrew and team to go through a co-creation in the Human-Centered Design Change Management course. And so what we were doing in person all had ways of translating to a virtual environment. And I just had to get my mind from 3D into this 2D session. And so what we did is when we were thinking about affinity diagramming or co-creating like a post-it workshop, we started using Trello board for that. It was a really fast tool to learn. Many people at different levels of our organization were able to use it. And we were able to co-create with both our program sponsors and executives ways of facilitating change and hearing their voices through this. It was a great engagement tool. And when I started workshops, similar to what Christina did at the beginning of this, everybody had come from different meetings and calendars were booked with Zoom. And so we always start off with something like AHA slides, an engagement tool that hears where are people when they come into the room, right? Let's ground us in what we're focused on achieving today. And it was funny. Sometimes people are like excited and some people are like, oh, another meeting. Like real candid honesty came onto these slides. And that's a great space to see what the spectrum of everybody's needs and desires are in that room when you're co-creating change. And then the third thing we did is our programs are quite complex and we try to facilitate different methods of sharing information. And because we get together in various change and human design activities, we need a way to get away from the computer, have some soak time, and then co-create. And so Smart Sheets was a tool that we learned during these sessions that was really impactful to make change impact assessments and share those with our team. So that at the end of the day, you could share a document and it was theirs. It was a very powerful tool. So the tools were one facet of the change program, and we slowly returned to some in-session programming, as you can see, by evidence of the mask and the shield. But there were some key learnings that I found as I was using some of the virtual sessions to co-create some of this change. Number one, I think human-centered design accelerates the process of collective visioning and problem solving. You're able to get people's thoughts onto paper and work in a cohesive manner. And that means when there's disruption or if there is, disagreement between things, there are tools and a facilitated process to hear differing voices and have everybody in the room experience that change. I think it's all about, balancing theory with some of the messiness of co-creating, right? I'm an architect, so I want to scribble on things and I want to kind of play with materials and get our hands dirty. And so this was a way to say, okay, yes, we're going through aspects of the ADCAR process, but now we're really basing this in tools and technology that people can understand. The 5 W's, which are what, where, when, why, and which one did I forget? Who? Yes, who. But we were able to make change narratives very quickly by just having a few tools and processes grounded in elements of change management and human-centered design. I think one of the things that we found is when we get in a room with people who hold certain beliefs and values, they're asking, why are you asking me that question? And there is a defense mechanism that sometimes happens. I think some of the modalities and the teachings of how to build impact or to build rapport and influence in a room are really key fundamentals that I learned. It helped me through the discovery process in order to ask the right questions and know different methods to get the best out of people when maybe they didn't feel like participating or they felt a little bit, hesitant about providing answer and being in the room for candid change. Finally, I think the methods that were learned and the methods that I'm using there's an appreciation for all learning styles, whether you're auditory and you love hearing a great story be told, whether you want to see something be created and made, whether you want to touch and feel something, there are tools in what we do through human-centered design in order to co-create change. And I think those tools are really influential in the way that you get people to buy into the process. And finally, I don't think we use practice makes perfect anymore. At least I don't. I think practice makes purpose. So every session, every workshop that you conduct, you learn something new. And that's really exciting about this. This is a really practical, useful way of facilitating change. And I think it's the way of the future. People want to be involved in change. And even if they dissent from the beginning, slowly, surely, they see something fun is happening. They see something interactive is happening. People are getting excited around something. And that's why human-centered design aspects to co-creating change is so important. So my takeaways, why and what is the future of human-centered change? Why do it? I think change management continues to be something that's talked about globally. I think it's taken a lead and that people have been using it outside the US and Canada for many, many years. I think it's taking hold here, especially as we've seen disruptions in government, in environmental impacts, in the recent pandemic. So these are aspects of change, whether you're in finance, transportation, technology, we're going to see accelerating change. And so we need to find tools and ways to bring people together quickly. People inherently want to be included in something and be part of the change. And so when you want to unleash the power of people, hear their voices and make them part of co-creating change with you. Andrew, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Awesome. A round of applause for Sandra. Thank you so much. Nice work. Sandra, we've got a great question from Ali.
Sure.
Ali is asking, well, how do you develop HCD when your customers are hard to reach? Potentially if there's maybe a relationship leader in between it, or they work for an agency which takes care of the relationship separately. How could we potentially use this?
Completely a great question. When I find that there's differing layers in between creating change, obviously you want to use spheres of influence to co-create change. And so if I can't talk with that leader specifically, I try to talk to people in proxy around them. I start to develop that collective power of others are wanting this change and wanting the influence of change. But eventually, obviously, I want to bring everybody to the table in creating change. And that happens through our vendor partners, through our consulting partners. We might be kind of both doing project management, but reaching across the aisle and understanding how to bring people in is the best way to create change. It doesn't happen perfectly all of the time, but I think that forming a center of power, of people's voices being heard together, starts to start a movement. And I think that's a word we've used here today is people are understanding that co-creating change is something that's possible. Did I answer your question?
I'm seeing a nod. Christina, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think the tools of human-centered change and human-centered design in strategy development are very much relationship building tools, right? So one of the things that I learned, even as I was going through the program was not just a methodology for change, but consultation skills, right? Things that were buried under, years and years and years of, more traditional consulting paradigms where I am the holder of all knowledge and a ta-da strategy, to new skills and looking at influences in biomimicry and NLP. Really, it's really about how we become more genuine in our strategy development process, and how we actually develop a strategy that is more holistic and ultimately more successful.
Absolutely. From my end, I've actually been in this situation. One of my clients is a big insurance company, and often what happens with insurance companies, they separate the sales side from the product side from the claim side. And the direct customers were always behind a separate agency or a separate leadership structure that would stand in the way. And what I did is, instead of trying to access the customer directly, I asked myself, well, who knows this customer better than anybody within my ambit of control? And if that was the distribution team leader, I would bring them into the fold and workshop and use human-centered design tools. And what that did for me is it not only got us to a solution, but it also developed that trust that I was there to actually help them, as opposed to a clever consultant or change manager coming in with a brand new strategy. And what happened was they then learned to trust me. And someone brought up trust in the beginning of the session, which then allowed me to open doors directly to customers. And we then landed up doing a focus group with a small group of customers, but that opened the door to give me access. Because once they saw that they could trust me with human-centered design, and they saw my approach was inclusive, empathetic, collaborative, they then trusted me with their customers. Does that make sense? Awesome. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to put them in.
Yeah, there's one from Sarah. I find it hard when leaders don't want to bring, let me scroll up. I find it hard when leaders don't want to bring people into co-design. It's tricky with people culture change when they say, that's what the consultation process is for people to provide feedback, but I think it's almost too late.
Yeah, it's a bit of a legacy issue. I think we've got some of the values from the industrial age and the information age really there. And you know, this is why I got into coaching and a lot of the one-on-one work, because often that mindset of the leader at the top can actually limit how far you can go with change. So it's really important to understand that it's usually not the behavior that's the issue. It's usually because that leader has a deep-rooted fear. And 9 out of 10 times, it's because that leader is afraid of losing something, losing face. And often through a one-on-one discussion, and obviously using those good consulting skills, those good human skills that we focus on when we train up change managers and project managers, those are the skills where you want to build that trust so that you can work around and with that fear. So I often say, you know, there's macro change, which is the co-creation involving people, but there's also the micro change, which is the mindsets of those individuals. And often as project managers and change managers and BAs, we know that we need to spend just as much time with the individual leaders as we do in the collective time. And when we get those two things right, magic happens. So I treat leadership resistance as just feedback. It's feedback on the change project, and it's one of, I don't call it out, but it's one of the change risks to the project that I then use coaching, one-on-one discussions to really get down to the root cause of the why. And often we don't ask why. We don't actually, and we don't have to say it like that, but we often ask, well, what's the reason you don't want to use co-creation? Get them to explain it. And once we understand the problem well enough, we can alleviate it. Because some people think it takes too much time. It's actually the opposite. I've done a study on all the projects we've done in the last 7 years, and what used to take me 3 months in change when I worked with Christina back in the day, now takes me 2 to 4 weeks. And on agile projects, if I use collaborative tools, it can take me as short as 48 hours. A lot of leaders think, oh, you know, if we ask people, they're going to say something bad. Well, most people don't. Most people actually want to have a good say. And what I've learned from the pandemic is where people really hate to change. Post-pandemic, we're seeing a huge enthusiasm for change where people want to get involved. And it's often, I just related to what I went through when I first learned human-centered design and started applying it in the change and project space. It was hard for me because I was so used to being that clever consultant with all the spreadsheets, all the tools, and have to have all the answers. But the world doesn't work like that anymore. You know, even as consumers, we have so much connectedness to have an influence, have a say. I mean, look at what's happening in America. Look at what's happening here in Australia, where the whole community gets involved with politics now and cultural insights. Whereas that didn't happen 10 or 20 years ago. But now in the social media world, people want to have their say. And it's less of a permission from leadership. It's more of a case of, why aren't we having a say? If I'm having a say on Facebook on the weekend, if I'm using crowdfunding tools to sponsor a project on my business, why am I not doing this within work and solving problems in the same way? So it is a bit of a journey, but the trick is to get started with it and really understand what the resistance is. Awesome questions, guys. Thank you so much for that. One more question. Are there any others?
There's a question, how do you convince them that this will not slow them down at the beginning? And is it a power position from the leader? And how do you open leaders up? So I think you have mentioned how you can open leaders up with some of those coaching sessions. But when it comes to convincing them that human-centered change approaches or co-creation won't slow them down, what do you say?
I think it's about understanding that we're in a time now where there's really a bit of a value struggle. And we're seeing that at the highest levels of authority in multiple countries now, but we're also seeing this in business. And, you know, on the one side, we've got a workforce that's rising up and expecting transparency, collaboration, involvement, inclusion, empathy, all these amazing things. And on the other side, we've got these outdated structures of business, which do work in certain elements. We do need governance. We do need risk management. We do need all of those things. But a lot of the values around that are around, I have to hide information to remain powerful. I have to look like this amazing leader and not be vulnerable to have the position. And I think it's about respecting both sides of the coin, because if we ignore the one for the cost of the other, we risk disengaging it. So I handle leadership values when I see some of the older values coming in. I respect that power, but I really, and this was at the last Space for Change, I like to understand what their away from motivators are and their towards motivators are. And if I know that, I can then frame human-centric approaches to help them save time, do those kind of things. The best way to convince people is personal stories as well. So I really recommend upgrading your skills, learning as much as possible, but experimenting with some of these tools. Because if you see it for yourself, you can tell real personal stories from real examples like Sandra and Marianne did to help convince and make some of those older power leaders a little bit more comfortable. Because in the end of the day, leaders want results. They're under the pump. They want the results. So if you can show them how human-centered design, instead of trying to sell them the concept of human-centered design, link it to the results they want. Link it to their fears that they have and how it can help them. And that's how I bring them along. Does that help? I'm seeing nods.
I think that was a great answer. Yeah.
Awesome.
Andrew, just a quick question. Sue Webster.
Yeah. Hey, Sue.
Hi. Does it take a bit longer in more dysfunctional cultures? Do you find building that trust quickly takes a lot longer?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought so. And when we say dysfunctional, I'm assuming it's this a bit of a toxic culture. It's a little bit of.
I mean, for example, who would love to go and do change up in, you know, Canberra right now in Parliament?
Yeah, I'd love to. This is the thing, and I know Melanie is probably doing it. What I love about human-centered design, I thought it would. And that was a lot of my own fears that, oh, if I do a workshop, all this dysfunction is going to come up. But the reality is, to Marianne and Sandra's point, you want that dysfunction to come up as a change manager. And when we train up change managers, we always say, you want to be as independent from that dynamic as possible and rather just hear it out. In fact, Sandra's got a brilliant story where she had two leaders who were completely misaligned. And by allowing the process and the tool of human-centered design, it actually allowed them to have that conversation, which they'd been avoiding for months and months and months. And they found alignment and the group dynamic helped. So a lot of it was initially my own fear around it. But once I learned to trust the process and also trust myself that if dysfunction comes up, it's feedback. Because if you don't do that up front, it's going to bite you in the bum later down the line, and you're going to pay for it later because it's going to hold back a project decision-making process. It's going to hold back a lot of the key things that happen. So I'd rather have that come to fruition up front in a safe, inclusive environment than have this as a problem later on and pretend everything's okay. Make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome question. Thanks for that, Sue. So guys, we have come to time. So a couple of things. Hugo's going to send you an email, but we're going to put it in the link. If you haven't already, let's stay connected. We're going to be running these out at least monthly, and I hope you enjoyed it. So please join our Space for Change LinkedIn group if you haven't already. We put a lot of content up there, and that's how we stay connected. Also, if you are keen on exploring some of our courses, which are specific around projects and change and how we use human skills and human-centered design, Christina and I have one in Australia coming up in the next couple of weeks, and one in America as well. We've got a couple of seats on the American one and just, I think, 1 or 2 seats on the Australian one. So have an explore of that. And the third is, please fill out our survey. All of these programs are designed with you in mind. You tell us the topic. Someone last time said they want to hear about co-creation, and we deliver that for you. So give us feedback. Let us know how we're doing. We love to keep improving, and we love feedback. So Hugo will send out the feedback form, and he's put a link in the chat. And with that said, on behalf of myself, Christina, Marianne, and Sandra, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And go well, and go forth, and prosper. Have a great one, guys.
See you.